when we look at ancestral trauma, what is the ancestral trauma that is asking for collective healing? A lot of what you and I have talked about is individual healing, but on a collective, maybe even a collective unconscious level, where we are, what is asking to be healed through our collective ancestry right now in the way that we interface with each other?
Oh, there's so many things. I'll do like top hits. Okay, so in terms of collective ancestry, there is a deep drive for there to be a merging between freedom and connection. Across cultures, if I was to take the whole world in, right, there is this tug of war that's been happening for generations between wanting very deep, very intimate connections that you can rely upon for the totality of your life, without those connections being the limiting factor in somebody going for what makes them happy or going for a sense of personal success. So it's where the personal meets the collective that you see the greatest amount of drive and desire emanating out of the collective. And that's one of them that I think is quite interesting.
Do you feel like that's an expression of integrated healthy ego at that place? Or is it something else?
If we actually get there, yeah.
Yeah. That's the goal, right?
Yeah,
I don't think I'm there yet, but
yes,
that's the goal.
That's the goal. There is a drive for understanding that is emanating from everyone on an ancestral level. It's been entertaining for me to look at that particular vibration because it means that so many different demographics feel completely misunderstood in their perspective. And I'm really excited to see how this plays out in terms of politics specifically, because the wave of the future is that politicians are going to have to drastically and deeply understand whatever it is that they are teaching to. It's no longer going to be something which we accept that they are making comments on experiences they've never had. Right? Which means what? It means that we're going to have leaders who have to be practicing consciousness work in order to be able to grasp the concepts that they themselves are passing policy on.
That's the kind of world I want to live in.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
That's the one that's like, maybe I'll stick around a little. Yeah. Yeah. But that place that we are headed is the direct result of so many ancestral cultures and ancestral individuals feeling so incredibly misunderstood. And so the wrong decisions being made about them, right? Okay, what's another? I'll pick three because otherwise we're going to be here all day long. Like, this is one of my favorite things to look at. You've really brought me in the direction of what I love looking at, by the way.
I love it too, because ever since I was a little boy, I'm like, what the fuck is this? What's going on here? Like, there's something off. And I think I've felt it deep inside me for my whole life.
Yeah.
I think most people do. An interstitial tension, if you will.
Yes.
Everyone feels it.
That's a very, very good way to put it, yes. Okay, so if I was to pick the third thing that is emanating from like the collective subconscious that relates to our ancestry, it's like coping would be the next thing that comes up. There's this feeling of powerlessness amongst people in general. It doesn't matter where you are looking in the world. That feeling of powerlessness is that I can't change certain aspects of my circumstances. And because I can't change certain aspects of my circumstances, I am coping with them in this way. And at this very deep primal level, whenever we are forced to cope in some way, we acknowledge that we cannot change a stressor which we want to change desperately. So there is a dreaming of being able to change the circumstances and change the stressor so as to not have to cope with what we don't want to cope with. Now, this ancestral trauma is what we can point to for movements like the feminist movement, movements like even what you're seeing within. Right now, the Gen Z culture is bringing in a movement around why isn't it enough for us to just be? They're actually ending the toxicity of the workplace condition, which is brought in by the industrial era when everybody came in and your worth was really about what you could do in front of a machine. Your worth is what you do, and that's the end of it. They are literally and legitimately ending it right now. We can talk about all their dysfunction later, but these movements within a generation and these movements within an entire culture happen because of these ancestral pains, like what I'm just describing. I have to cope with this thing I do not like. There have been, I'll tell you where the Gen Zs got this from, because they would probably tell you it came from some form of disillusionment in their own life. But actually it came because their grandparents and parents were so miserable eking their life out for the sake of the pennies they got in their job and really not experiencing any life satisfaction as a result of all that hard work they were doing, that they have imbued this strong, powerful desire to really be in life and in the enjoyment of life. Interesting, right?
I felt that with my own father. Like, he kicks his ass. He's miserable. Why would I want money? I had to go through so many layers of wounding around money before I transcended. And I was like, okay, it's actually just a unit of exchange. It's literally just a way that you give and receive energy. That's all that it is. But what you're talking about with Gen Z, I'm like 1980. So I'm like 1 foot in the old generation, 1 foot in the other one. I don't know, depending on however you believe these dates actually mean anything. But it's so fascinating to me because what you're saying is true. Like, there's so much pain body around people seeing their parents and grandparents suffering for fucking money that they themselves reject it. But isn't that a form of the protector and the rejector that you speak about?
Yeah, and anytime we're dealing with a protector that is using rejection as a strategy for staying safe, you run the risk of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And so you see the manifestation of the shadows of that. Let's say in Gen Z, you've got why can't I just enjoy life and be celebrated in my value for being, at the same time as you've got a generation of individuals who are not willing to take any pushback.
Yeah.
Therefore, you don't really see this strong commitment to whatever value they hold, and whatever challenge meets them, they don't go, wait a minute, challenge is an element of life. I'm going to stay the course regardless of the challenges of life. It's give that up, give that up. So it seems like a very weak, culture and a very weak generation because of that. So we run the risk of falling into the shadow anytime we step in any direction. And that's something, honestly, for those of us that are on the path of consciousness, I feel like this is one of the most important things that we can be aware of, is that anytime we commit to a path, that path can get us in trouble. We have to be aware of the trouble that path can get us in.
No doubt.
Otherwise, we ourselves become dangerous.
It's what Castaneda talks about. I think it's like he has the 4 pieces of life, and the second one is clarity. Clarity has a shadow. If you think you know exactly the way, then there's a shadow that comes there that you could possibly not even know you don't know.
Yeah.
The shadow of clarity.
By the way, that's the one that makes me the most panicked. If you would like to know what keeps me awake at night, it's this one.
How so?
You never know what you don't see. I'm somebody who I would tell you has much more clarity than the majority of human beings that have been walking the earth ever. This is the one that scares the crap out of me. Nobody can account for what they don't see that they don't see. So it's almost like a phantom that's chasing me at all moments. I can feel it on my back.
Hey, don't go anywhere. Now that you're here, let me say thank you for being a part of this podcast. Click any of the buttons on this screen, here or anywhere, because these are specifically matched episodes that you'll really love based on what you just saw. Just tap one of these buttons on the screen, and while you're at it, subscribe to the podcast.